welcome to the Games and Thoughts podcast. This is your co-host Traxton. Today we'll be talking about the importance of charity, an issue close to our hearts at Games and Thoughts. Stay tuned till the end of the episode where I'll have an important announcement to make regarding that. But I guess to begin, we can talk about a common stereotype in the philosophy field that we might call the philosopher in the tower. Basically, the idea is that of a thinker who spends all their time pondering the most esoteric and abstract ideas known to man, without ever actually dealing with anything which has practical use within the world or life. It's always struck me as a very poignant stereotype, and something to avoid, as it definitely has some correlation to reality with a lot of thinkers. Many philosophers can spend their entire careers working on a handful of logical fallacies, or dissecting every word of an obscure essay written by an ancient thinker, which holds little sway in the overall picture of their beliefs and ideas. And there's not anything necessarily wrong with being interested in these obscure pursuits. Benefit can come from them. But it seems to me that to really be a philosopher, thinker, or even a highly developed moral individual, you have to have a foot on the ground, so to speak. There are so many interesting and complex issues in the world today, it would be a waste of one's time to not take the time to deal with the most practical and salient of them. This is something Michael and I discussed on a previous podcast. And from the perspective of a first world citizen, it's hard to see why charity isn't at the forefront of everyone's moral priorities. This is really a failure of modern civilization, I think. It is actually difficult to comprehend just how much better off a middle-class citizen in a first-world country is than someone living in desolate poverty. According to a 2016 CDC study, it was found that 780 million people worldwide do not have access to safe water. It's hard to fully digest this statistic. Each one of these 780 million people is an individual, just like you and me, who has to fight a battle every single day just to gather enough water to survive. Again, the only difference between these people and you and me is pure luck of the draw regarding where we were born. Take a moment to think about just how different your everyday experience of life would be if you weren't even guaranteed access to the things most basic to your survival. In fact, this seems like the one issue that everyone should agree on, regardless of philosophical or religious sect. For a strict utilitarian, charity is an opportunity to increase the overall happiness in the world with little effort. And if you're a Christian, Jesus' teachings are filled with calls to aid for the poor. Generosity is one of the core tenets of Buddhist practice as well, and the list goes on and on. In fact, in preparation for this talk, I tried to recall a system of thought, religious or otherwise, which advises against generosity and charity. I couldn't find one. The only one might be some form of dogmatic capitalism, but even in that system, one could reason their way to being generous even for purely selfish reasons. So it seems that everybody is in agreement. Charity is good. And yet, almost nobody capable participates in it. This is an issue that we talked about in the previous podcast when we talked about Singer's pond analogy. Right, think of the inordinate amount of good that someone like Jeff Bezos could do if only he chose to do so. The man could definitely come close to eradicating the water issue I mentioned, along with many other issues, at the equivalent of a snap of a finger. And the kicker is, he would still probably be the richest man in the world. This psychopathic desire that most of the world's elites have to allocate resources beyond even potential future use for oneself is perhaps one of the biggest plagues against humanity in the modern world. But at the same time, most of us are also capable of helping to solve these issues in whatever small capacity possible. As Peter Singer and Will MacAskill, the leading philosophers giving a voice to charity in today's world, argue, any wealth that one's collecting which is past the point of one's own sustenance is effectively wealth that could be going to the less fortunate. And it seems to me that taking action towards these conclusions, which, by the way, can be arrived at either rationally or just through basic human compassion, is the antidote to becoming the overly abstract philosopher in the tower that we mentioned at the beginning. All of this is why I'm excited to be able to announce that as of now, 50% of all donations to Games and Thoughts will be going to a charitable cause. This isn't intended as merely a marketing ploy either. We here at the Games and Thoughts teams are truly convinced of the need for attention for these issues, and it makes me feel much better about having the opportunity to work on this project knowing that it's tied to these causes. The idea at work here is that you can simultaneously give to a good cause and support our show if you find it to be interesting. And, not incidentally, the growth of our show will be synonymous with more people being able to donate to charitable causes, and so on. The logistics of this donation system will be fairly simple. 50% of all money donated to our show will go to a charitable organization. It is up to the giver of the donation what organization this will be, but if you don't have a preference, then we'll make sure that it goes to a reputable and efficient group. On a side note, we recognize that there's a wide spectrum of usefulness and efficacy among charity groups, and we will do our best to do our due diligence in this area. One of our members is already involved in working with nonprofit groups, so we aren't merely throwing ourselves into the fire in that regard. If you'd like more information about the specifics of how this program will work, feel free to email us at gamesandthoughts18@gmail.com. To donate, simply head over to patreon.com/gamesandthoughts. From there, you can easily let us know if there's a specific cause you'd like to give to, or as mentioned before, we will be sure to inform you. Lastly, please only donate if it's within your means. We'd feel no better about ourselves if we were collecting money from people who need every dollar. Our goal is only to be collecting money from those who feel perfectly at ease with giving some away, not to guilt anyone into it whose means can't support it. And if you don't want to give, then merely sharing our channel to others who might enjoy it is greatly appreciated. We'll be recording new episodes again soon, covering a wide range of topics, and we can't wait to engage in discussion with all of you, wherever possible. All of the appropriate links will be made available in the description of this video. Thank you, and we'll see you again next time on Games and Thoughts.